how is echolalia and self-talk connected? Are they both the same or they are different? Because many, and I feel, I mean, I would like to know your views that in the initial years, I think up to 6 years of age, kids do, like I remember talking as a child, I used to become a teacher, speak it out loud. I think it's a very natural, normal part of it. And then we internalize, then we start thinking in our heads. Initially, it's all speaking. So, what are your views about self talk?
Okay, well, I agree with you entirely on the first bit. Until around, I would say even maybe until around 5 or 6 years old, children just can't keep it inside their head. It just comes out, whatever they want to talk about. Self-talk it certainly doesn't follow that a child who displays a lot of echolalia when they're small is going to develop into a child or a young adult or an adult who self-talks all the time. That's definitely not, in my opinion, correlated like that. But I mean, don't we all self-talk? If I need to remember a telephone number, I will say it over and over and over again, or I walk into the supermarket muttering away to myself like a mad old lady going, cabbage, yogurt, bread, and jam. Cabbage, yogurt, and I'll keep doing it over and over again. Young adults with on the spectrum, generally, very big generalization, but generally, short-term memory is an issue for them. And so self-talk, as I understand it, is something that can be used by these individuals to help them to remember to put something from short-term memory into long-term memory. They tend to have amazing long-term memories, but that shift of moving something from short-term to long-term is a little bit more challenging for them. So this is a way to help. Self-talk can also be, if we put ourselves into the position of a young person, let's say a secondary school student who has some problem to solve in a class, and he's really struggling with the problem. That in itself is taking up all of his energy to try to solve that problem. Breaking off from that and turning around to ask his friend or his teacher how to help him, that's another huge problem. That's the social interaction. That's the getting started. That's the speaking up. And so it's easier sometimes, from what I understand from talking to some of my teenage students, it's easier for them just to try to talk themselves through the problem. How about if I do this and then I do that and then rather than stop one problem and try to take on another problem. A lot of individuals with ASD lack confidence. We're talking about higher level ASD, lack confidence, and if they rehearse, they do a lot of rehearsing. A lot of the self-talk is rehearsing how they're going to deal with certain situations. They get very anxious, and they are preparing themselves by rehearsing what they need to say. It's also a way to process information. Sometimes if a child, you say something to a child and they don't follow your instructions straight away and you repeat it, then they can follow your instruction. That's because the first time you said it, maybe they were able to process some of it. When you repeat it, they're able to process the rest of it, and then they can carry it out. So for an adult, rather than asking people to repeat or standing there waiting for them to repeat, they tend to repeat to themselves, and it helps them to process the instructions and what they've been asked to do. I've heard some adults on the spectrum saying that the voices inside their heads, the noise inside their head is just too loud. There's just too much, and they have to get it out. They have to express all these arguings and discussions that are going on inside their head. They have to actually verbalize it. Sometimes they have to, they just have to release it. They just have to release because it's building up tension inside them. And sometimes they need somebody to listen. I've heard people saying this to me, that they need somebody to listen, but they don't know how to get somebody's attention. So we might, call up a girlfriend and say, hey, look, I've had a really bad day. I just need to offload onto somebody. Can I just talk to you? They don't know how to do that. So they just talk. And actually, it's a way of asking people to listen to what they have to say. And they're not wanting to engage in a conversation. They just want someone to listen. So self-talk is actually quite different to echolalia. It definitely serves a purpose. Sure, sometimes if you're talking about children or young adults who are perhaps more affected by their ASD, then possibly their self-talk contains more of these learned phrases and things they've heard on the TV or on the phone or whatever. That would be perhaps a little bit more concerning, but I still think there's a way out of that, and it's serving a purpose. So, yeah.
And there are certain sounds, certain words which catch their attention, and they keep repeating those words, which may be out of context, but they do it. Maybe because they find them very new. I don't know. There are some of them.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I think it's impossible for us to get inside the head of somebody with ASD. And even if we did, we wouldn't understand all the other people with ASD. So, just like a little dust mote floating in the air that we don't see is fascinating. So the sounds, the intonation, the melody of a word may be very, very interesting. That word may be fascinating. We don't feel that it's fascinating although that's not entirely true. I mean, sometimes we do hear a word ourselves that we feel, oh, that's really interesting. That sounds nice. And, we repeat it a few times. So I think there must be something that attracts them. And I think we have to respect that. We can talk about it. That's a nice sound. That's interesting. Do you know what that means? Depends on their level, just we can go with it. Yeah.
Yeah.